My name is Claes Andrén. I am a scientist focusing on nature conservation. The plants and animals we see in nature today are the survivors of many difficulties. They are the winners of a ruthless competition. Only the smartest have remained. They are equipped with the best possible features based on the conditions in which they live. They have developed amazing adaptations, appearances and behaviors to survive in harsh environments, to escape enemies, to become skilled hunters, to save their resources. Some of these species possess knowledge that we can benefit from. Nature's own innovations that can help us develop new materials, key technologies, energy-saving design and pioneering medicines to affect aging and cure cancer. Preserving the Earth's biodiversity is not a luxury for nature lovers. It is a critical issue for all of us. We will look into adaptations of plants and animals living in the forest, both in the living and the dead, and in forest waters. Beetle larvae that live in old dying trees and which influence the modern forestry in a decisive way. Plants and animals that survive only if the forest burns. Snakes that have been a model for modern infrared technology. Frogs in the rainforest that helped us develop important medicines. Insects that had a bearing on flight development, and others who might help us walk on water in the future. The forest has a given place in the Nordic people's souls. Here you find tranquility and beauty, but also mystery, darkness, and perhaps fear. The old forest aroused people's imagination. It was always full of supernatural beings, but we don't see them so much nowadays. Like misty veils, fairies in white dance at dawn near the forest water. If you see a beautiful woman in the woods, then check her back. If it's a hollow, rotten tree trunk, then it's the forest lady. At a watercourse, a being attracts young woman by playing the violin, magically and beautifully. It's Necken's way of seducing. If the worst happens, he pulls the maiden down into the depths. The trolls have different shapes, like large boulders with a hat of moss, or strange roads and tree stumps. What happens when darkness falls over the 1,000-year-old oak? Many researchers say there is no primeval forest in Sweden or any other place in Europe or even on Earth. If you consider primeval to mean not influenced by man. But there are still wild forests, well-preserved old forests with high nature values. One of Europe's oldest forests is in southeastern Poland, in Białowieża, on the border to Belarus.
Białowieża forest is the best preserved forest in Europe, which we still have. We are not sure how far it is natural, but we don't have a closer to natural forest.
Why, in your opinion, is this Białowieża forest important to protect for the future?
Białowieża forest still is the place where natural processes were unbroken for thousands of years. And it's like a unique natural lab. We don't have a better place where we can better study such interactions, where we can learn how forest works, how it functions.
Open grassland in the forest is usually a result of human land use. The European bison is one of the natural wild grazers that spread throughout Europe after the last ice age.
The funny thing is that originally, as my colleagues have just discovered recently, the bison was not a forest species. It was the human pressure that drove bison to vast, deep forests like that, just as a means to survive. Originally, bison was most probably a species of open areas, so it would rather dwell in the river valleys, in open areas, and it was us that made it a forest specialist. This was one of the rare examples of the forests that were never opened by natural causes. It was only us humans, when we came here and started utilizing the forest, not even cutting, not even burning it down, but utilizing it for several different traditional uses. That was the moment when the forest started to be more open.
The forest was established in Sweden when the inland ice withdrew 10,000 years ago. In southern Sweden there are still ancient cultural landscapes and deciduous forests with high natural values, such as open oak pastures and large continuous beech forests. At a closer look, there are clear signs of recent land use. Planted spruce beside old stone walls and overgrown house foundations. In northern Sweden there are large national parks. Several of these are more than 100 years old. There are old pine forests with many fallen trees where no visible traces of human activity can be found. But also mighty spruces that stood here for hundreds of years. At higher altitudes, the mountain birch forest dominates. The higher you go, the lower the birch trees become. On the mountain tops, the creeping dwarf birch is predominant, more like a bush than a tree. On the peaks, you can see an interesting phenomenon. It is the mountain spruce with an amazing ability to adapt to the harsh climate up here. During favorable periods, a tree with branches and crown develops. But growing into a big tree costs a lot of energy, and in worse times the spruce becomes a creeping bush. The oldest living mountain spruce is found in Fyllefjällets National Park. It's called Old Chico. The tree itself is only a few hundred years and 5 meters high, but the root system is almost 10,000 years. It is thus the oldest known living tree in the world. Many large and old pines in the mountains have a twisted trunk. It is most clearly seen on dead trees without bark. The fibers in the tree trunk have a greater tensile strength than compressive strength. It means that in a storm the tree is weakest on the lee side, where it is pressed together. But if the tree is twisted, then the pressure on the lee side will be spread over a larger surface, and it will therefore be able to withstand the hard wind better. A twisted trunk also leads away the wind. This has been used, for example, when building large chimneys fitted with a spiral twist on the outside. Is the artwork in Malmö Turning Torso just a beautiful building with an exciting architecture? Or can the building also withstand strong winds better, similar to the twisted tree trunk? The social values and our experiences of forests have recently been more highlighted.
Jag möter alla sorters människor. Det som är gemensamt för dem, det är ju att de har ett stort naturintresse. Och det kan vara människor från stora städer nere i Europa till ekonomen ifrån den lilla byn som alltid längtat efter att få uppleva ett tjäderspel. Jag tror att människor som kommer till en gammal skog, de söker lugnet. Jag tror de söker känslan av någonting, känslan av en skog. Och att få med sig någon form av minne av en rofylld miljö där naturen får ha sin gång.
During the summer and autumn, many choose the forest for some pleasant hours of mushrooming or picking berries. Or maybe just for the moment's enjoyment of the forest's delights.
Jag tror att skyddad natur är en av de stora förutsättningarna för landsbygdsutveckling. Och det ser man ju här där jag bor, hur många som får sin försörjning av det. I eftermiddag så ska jag ta med ännu en grupp på en av mina mest populära aktiviteter. Och det är ju älgsafarin, där man får åka ut och möta skogens konung.
People have always hunted in the woods. Nowadays, hunting may not have the same importance for human survival, but is still an important part of life for many. And the social aspect must not be underestimated. Being together in a beautiful environment and gathering around the fire. If you want an extra challenge, fly fishing is an art for the real enthusiast. It requires great skill. The bait should, as far as possible, mimic the natural prey of the fish, a mayfly. Most people know that the forest provides timber, firewood, and raw materials for paper. But the forest gives us many more services that are difficult to price. These utilities are not always so obvious, yet completely invaluable. The forest floor serves as a filter and gives us clean drinking water. The forest prevents erosion and storm damage. It is a habitat for many species. It contributes to the pollination of plants. And the role of forests in regulating the climate has been increasingly highlighted. Forest animals possess a lot of knowledge. With these as a model, we can develop smart technology and valuable materials. Animals in forest waters also offer exciting technology. The water strider has thousands of small, fine hairs on its legs that form an airbag, a water-repellent barrier which makes it float. This has been used to build robots that can run on the water surface and for the production of water-repellent materials. And who knows, maybe one day we can use the same technology to walk on water. Other exciting animals in forest water are dragonflies. They live most of their life as a larva, a troll at the bottom of a pond. Eventually, the troll climbs up a stalk, emerging from the water like an alien, and settles in the sun. In the fairy tale, the troll bursts in daylight and disappears. Our ugly troll cracks along the back when it comes into the light, but turns into the most beautiful of creatures, a master of the air. They are predators, and the big facet eyes surpass the eyesight of all other insects. The wing pairs can move independently, in or out of time with each other. Maneuverability is outstanding, and the dragonfly can stand still and hover, fly swiftly in different directions, dive downwards and crosswise. The dragonfly's design makes it very interesting as a model for the development of quiet, more energy-efficient wind turbines and small, unmanned aerial vehicles. The forest has been one of Sweden's most important natural resources. A landowner's own forestry work is still the economical backbone to keep the countryside living. In the future, forests can be even more important as our economy is increasingly based on renewable raw materials. Sweden's forest policy has two equal goals. The forest is to be managed so that it sustainably yields a good return while maintaining its biodiversity. The environmental goal, a living forest, means that all naturally occurring species can survive in viable populations. From a climate point of view, it is important to leave the old forests for free development. Old trees absorb more carbon dioxide than previously thought. With today's forestry and the present level of nature conservation, the environmental goals will not be achieved. The challenge is to find a balance between forestry's economic interests, biodiversity, and human access to a beautiful and eventful forest landscape. Today's forestry is highly mechanized, and a single harvester can cut and stack 350 trees in certain lengths in a single working day. A job that previously required at least 25 hard-working forestry workers. Previously, forestry work was performed manually. The development of the modern chainsaw was crucial for safety and efficiency. The felling cut determines the direction the tree will fall. The wedge helps to force the tree in the right direction. A logger sits on a tree trunk in the Swedish forest, sharpening his saw chain. 70 years ago, another logger sat on a tree trunk in the redwood forest in Oregon, northwestern United States. The logger saw a big beetle larva slitting wood fibers with even cuts. The larva had C-shaped jaws with sharp edges on the inside. This is one of North America's largest beetles, a timber beetle. A close relative to the timber beetle lives in Sweden. The adult beetle deposits its eggs in cracks in the bark of old pines. The larva then lives between the wood and the bark, where water and nutrition are transported. It eventually transforms into a fully developed beetle. A hot summer night, it emerges from its cavity inside the tree. The logger Joe Cox became curious about how the larva so cleverly could cut through the wood fibers. He made his own saw chain with C-shaped teeth back home in his workshop. The chain proved to work surprisingly well, and Joe Cox began to manufacture and sell his new chain to other forest workers. The demand increased and the business developed into large-scale production. Joe Cox's discovery developed into one of the world's largest forest companies. The early chainsaws were heavy and dangerous to use. The saw chain looked different and the teeth had a different shape. We will meet Åke Björkhem and Lennart Karlsson, two enthusiasts who spend a lot of time on old-fashioned chainsaws.
Vad kan det ha betytt, Åke, när man utvecklade den här nya typen av sågkedja?
En säkrare kedja vad det gällde vibrationer och framförallt så blir det mycket lättare att fila.
Ja.
Den gamla kedjetyperna var ju väldigt svåra med många olika vinklar att fila och denna är ju betydligt enklare. På vanliga enmansmotorsågar så finns det ju idag svärd upp till 84 tum. Det är ju över 2 meter. Som en man använder och då kan han gå in ifrån 4 olika håll med det. Det betyder ju att han kan ju såga ner trä som är 4-5 meter i diameter utan problem.
Men vad väger en sån såg?
Ja, 20 kilo eller någonting väger det kanske med ett sånt där svärd på.
Den nya lätta enmanssåg.
A wood-dwelling beetle larva has been the model for an important technological breakthrough in forestry, the modern saw chain. In principle, the same type of chain is also used in today's most modern forest machinery. Fire is a natural element in our forests, although most fires today are caused by men through incautious handling of fire or by sparks from trains and machines. In the summer of 2014, Sweden's largest forest fire in modern times raged, and 14,000 hectares of forest burned down. A large part of the burned area has today become a nature reserve where various research projects will follow the continued development in detail. Hundreds of species are dependent on fire, and some have advanced technology to detect it at a distance. We meet Annie Johansson in central South Sweden a few months after a forest fire.
Du släcker bränder, Annie, men jag har förstått att du också anlägger bränder. Hur kan det komma sig?
Ja, jag hjälper till i bägge delarna. Anlägger kanske är lite tufft ord, men vi är med och planerar och utför naturvårdsbränningar. Alltså väl planerade bränningar i rent naturvårdssyfte.
Ja. Och varför gör man det?
Det finns många olika anledningar, men det är olika biologiska anledningar. Vi vill få tillbaka alltså elden som störningsmoment i naturen som den har funnits innan. Det gynnar lövskog, det gynnar tallskog och det gynnar en hel del insekter, svampar, lavar. Det finns en lång rad arter som gynnas av branden.
Planned forest fires within demarcated areas can be an important management method for promoting and maintaining a high biodiversity in the forest. When there are no fires, the forest changes and species dependent on fires have difficulties in surviving.
Här har vi en tall som är skadad vid brandtillfället. Den här skadan kommer sedan synas efter många år. Det kallas för brandljud.
Okay, ja.
Och skär vi då ett snitt av det här trädet så kan vi då räkna årsringarna i tallen och se vilket år skadan skedde. Här ser man att den har dött, barken har dött vid en brand 1726.
Oj, så det är ett mycket gammalt träd. Ja.
Det här är ett gammalt träd.
Det här är ju ett tecken på att brand är en naturlig företeelse.
Ja, det är ju ett tecken på att branden har varit närvarande på precis den här platsen där stubben var. Ja. Precis de här årtalen och man kan se intervallen. Så har man då sådana stubbar från hela landet så är det ju liksom ett bevis på att branden är en del av naturen.
Här är ju hjortron, ja.
Här är hjortron, ja. Nu är vi ute på myrmark, så här kommer hjortron.
Det kan vara en effekt av elden, tror du?
Det tror jag absolut. Det är många ställen man ser att hjortronen kommer i full fart efter en brand.
Ja.
Erik Nordlind at the county board in Kalmar, southeast Sweden, is directing a conservation forest fire. Before starting the fire, the weather is carefully checked. The team pulls out hoses to water and soak the vegetation along the fire breaks to create safe boundaries. When everything seems okay, the forest is set on fire. Once the desired results are met, the fire is extinguished, but anthills and stumps can glow for a long time. The fire is a big-scale disturbance that creates a lot of dead wood. Open soils and burned rocky ground favor less competitive species. Many fire-favored plants have a seed bank that can lie in the ground and wait for the right conditions for many decades. Some need a ground temperature of 50 degrees Celsius to germinate. The sooty black beetle is equipped with special aids for locating forest fires from a long distance. The secret is a battery of small liquid-filled blisters with nerve cells. Even very low heat causes the fluid to expand and increase the pressure on the nerves, which in turn sends a signal to the brain informing it of the fire. The sooty black beetle is first in place and initially has no competition from other species. It can quickly lay its eggs in the still, smoky wood, and the larvae then live in and off the wood. This inconspicuous and small beetle is equipped with advanced technology. The detectors on the antennas can sense smoke from a forest fire up to 50 kilometers away. Perceiving low heat radiation from a long distance is the best method of detecting forest fires. Researchers try to mimic the beetle's sensitive technology, but so far the sooty black beetle is superior. In Spain, a wireless system of sensors on tree trunks that collect weather data has been set up and can detect and predict the development of forest fires. The tropical rainforest is found in a belt around the equator. It is important in terms of our climate. By absorbing large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, it can reduce global warming. The rainforest is the Earth's lung. It produces a large part of the oxygen we need for breathing. Therefore, it is worrying that we have lost more than half of our rainforest in the last 100 years. The tropical rainforest is 60 million years old. The long time and a steady and warm climate with plenty of rain has led to the development of rich biodiversity. Half of the Earth's species are found here, although the rainforest only covers 6 to 7% of the land area. Many rainforest species are threatened and hundreds are already extinct. Several plants in these forests are part of our diet and many are used for important medicines. In Central and South America, there are amphibians that can produce strong toxins. They are called dart frogs and use that toxin as an effective defense against predators. The frogs eat insects, which in turn have eaten toxic plants. The toxic molecules are transported through the frog's body and stored in special glands in the skin. The distinct and contrasting colors tell a predator that the price is high if you try to eat me. Indigenous people like the Embarachoco in Colombia have traditionally used toxins from dart frogs on their arrows when hunting with blowpipes. Especially the yellow dart frog, one of the world's most poisonous animals, with the appropriate scientific species name terribilis. The secretion of the skin from certain dart frogs contain toxins that are 200 times stronger than morphine. They can be used medically to relieve pain and stimulate cardiac activity. The amphibian skin is thin and sensitive and is in close contact with the surrounding environment. It is used for breathing as oxygen is absorbed directly from the air through fine blood vessels. Glands in the skin produce substances that protect against external impact, especially from bacteria. Together with scientists from Russia and Vietnam, I went on an expedition to Vietnam's mountain rainforest 20 years ago. We found and described a new species of the big and smelly cascade frogs. Recently, it was discovered that these frogs have an incredibly effective antibacterial defense. Research is now going on to find out if this could be our new weapon against infections. Effective antibiotics where current antibiotics no longer work. A medical application that would be of greatest importance to human health and survival. Climate change, loss of habitats and diseases have caused major problems for rainforest amphibians. Particularly worrying is the chytrid disease, a fungus that attacks the frog's skin and obstructs oxygen uptake and breathing. Together with scientists from different countries, we went to the rainforest of Costa Rica and Panama to find out if other rare and threatened frogs suffered from the disease. The terrain was sometimes difficult and demanding to get through. Tadpoles and adults were tested by applying a cotton bud to the skin and then storing it in liquid for later analysis when we returned home. We could confirm that many very rare frogs were still there. Several of our findings were new and unknown species. They have now been described by the team and given scientific names. After sampling, all animals were released back to the place where they were found. Brian Kubicki, a conservation biologist, has devoted his life to save the rainforest frogs in Costa Rica. He pays special attention to the critically threatened lemur leaf frog, which until recently was thought to be extinct. He has turned his own land into a rainforest nature reserve, restored and added small pools where the frogs can reproduce. But it's also about finding additional genuine rainforest areas and protecting them from tree felling. To take into account the ongoing climate change, Brian looks for areas at different altitudes in the mountains. We accompany Brian on one of these expeditions to find pristine areas to be protected, to become new nature reserves. Brian intends to create new populations of lemur leaf frogs by introducing animals from his reserve back home. Elvere is one of these new areas, a well-preserved cloud rainforest. Andrew Gray, a conservation biologist and frog expert at the University of Manchester, UK. He has led the International Lemur Leaf Frog Project and coordinated the applied conservation work. Here with a dwarf form of the red-eyed tree frog.
As its name suggests, it's a lot smaller, but also it lacks the bars down the side of its flanks. It's still got the red eyes, but they're very metallic looking. Look. And it's so cool to come across these.
To reduce the risk that a lemur leaf frog becomes extinct in nature, the Swedish foundation Nordens Ark has offered its help. A special facility was built where a population of the endangered frog is held, with specimens originating from Brian Kubicki's reserve in Costa Rica. Dedicated zookeepers have taken on the responsibility for this important conservation work at Nordens Ark. If the wild population of lemur leaf frogs were to die out, then it's possible to save the species by reintroduction using these animals. We hope that the conservation work in Costa Rica will be so successful that the lemur leaf frogs at Nordens Ark never have to leave the facility. We return to the rainforest, but now to Queensland in northeastern Australia. In 1973, a slimy aquatic frog was found in a rainforest stream. It was a completely unknown species for science. The reproduction of the frog proved to be unique. The young developed inside the female stomach. Nothing like this had ever been seen in the animal kingdom. It was called gastric brooding frog. Owing to this frog, we know how the hydrochloric acid production in the stomach can be regulated, which led to the development of some very important gastric drugs. And therefore, it has helped thousands of stressed people to a better life. But the latest observation of the gastric brooding frog was made in 1985. Together with scientists from Australia, we will try to rediscover the frog that gave us so much valuable knowledge. Eventually, we found the kind of creeks and rapids we hoped for, seemingly perfect environments for the gastric brooding frog. One rainy night, we woke up to a deafening sound. It was the red-eyed tree frog calling in hundreds on the mountainside next to the tent. The storm and rain had triggered the breeding. This is also the place for platypus. It patrols a section of the brook looking for small prey on the bottom and under rocks. The prey is located by means of electrical receptors on the beak. A strange mammal with a beak, it lays eggs and nurses its young. The male has a poisonous spine on his hind leg for defense, and the toxin causes intense pain. Kookaburra, Australia's largest kingfisher, famous for its laughing call. The carpet python has sensitive heat sensors in pockets along the sides of the mouth. With the help of these, the snake can detect a prey in the dark. A temperature difference of less than 1 degree is enough. It determines direction and distance with its tongue. Heat-sensitive pits in snakes were used as a model for development of modern infrared technology, such as in cameras and night binoculars. We continue further into the rainforest, to areas that no researchers have previously visited. We hope the chytrid fungus has not spread here. A difficult disease that has killed many amphibians in tropical countries and may explain why the gastric brooding frog has not been found for more than 30 years. The only possibility to reach these areas is to continue by helicopter deeper into the rainforest, and with a pilot who dares to fly under the treetops, along narrow rivers, and land on rocky outlets in the water or along the beach. Large tree ferns make it feel like prehistoric times. A honey-eater feeds her young. Despite its strong colors, the rainbow lorikeet is sometimes difficult to detect inside the foliage. Conrad Hoskin, the expedition's leader and expert in the gastric brooding frog, thinks that the place cannot be better. The environment looks very promising. If the gastric brooding frog is still around, this must be the place.
Yeah, and all through that looks fantastic in there. So the female then lays her eggs to the side of the stream on land. The male fertilises them, and then the female then swallows the eggs. They go down into her guts, into her digestive system, into her stomach. And when they get in there, the chemical on the surface of the egg shut down her gastric acid production, and then her stomach just became the place where the tadpoles and eventually the little froglets live. So people then very quickly wanted to learn how the frogs were doing this. How on earth could the female shut down her gastric acids and not digest the eggs? I mean, that would be the sensible thing that would happen, right? And ultimately, the chemical was discovered on the eggs, and that was then used to make medicines for humans. So this is an example of where something truly incredible that's evolved in nature has then been used for human benefit and been a very successful medication.
Despite hard work, the gastric brooding frog cannot be found. Maxine Pigot works at the Australian National University. By analyzing the water, she can detect DNA from the amphibians present in the stream.
So one of the really important questions in conservation is knowing what's left of our biodiversity, and one of the methods that we're trying to use is to find out what species are left and what we can conserve and still protect. So all of the species that are present in this stream will leave DNA through their feces or through their body cells and things like that. And so I sample the water, and then I extract the DNA, and then I'm able to analyse the DNA and detect what species are left, and that just gives us a magnificent overview of what's left and what we need to protect for the future.
Not even her analysis could prove that the gastric brooding frog remained, at least not in this water system. Sadly, the only place to find the gastric brooding frog is probably here, in a museum in Sydney. It seems to be extinct on Earth, forever gone, along with hundreds of other amphibians and many other animals and plants. This was where it lived, in the pristine rainforest behind the Great Barrier Reef. A consolation, however, is that we discovered the gastric brooding frog's secret, a completely unlikely adaptation of an animal species before it died out on Earth. We are back in Sweden. That's how our trip began, near the water where life once started. Here in shallow pools on the coastal meadow, one of our most unique species lives in a viable population. But that has not always been the case. It is a fire-bellied toad who died out in Sweden in the early 1960s. By recreating a functioning habitat, breeding and reintroducing frogs of Danish origin, we now have one of Europe's best populations of the fire-bellied toad. The fire-bellied toad is a symbol of successful nature conservation, proof that biodiversity can be preserved. Just like the gastric brooding frog, the fire-bellied toad spends the entire active season in the water. To attract the female, the male uses its entire body as a resonance box. A big male has a deeper voice, which signals successful survival and growth. So the song helps the female find a good father with good qualities for her young. To watch this drama and enjoy the sonorous ring of nature, can life be better? Time has come for thoughtful reflections. During millions of years, evolution has tested, rejected, developed and refined adaptations of all living organisms on Earth. Only the most ingenious solutions have survived. Preserving our biodiversity is not only one of the best decisions we can make, it is a prerequisite for a future sustainable life for us humans on Earth.